Thunder rolled across the hills of ancient Nigeria. The dry wind carried dust through a struggling village. Cracked earth stretched for miles. Rivers had disappeared. Farms had died. Hunger sat in every home like an unwelcome spirit. Then one man stepped forward, not a king, not a warrior, a prophet, and before the entire nation, fire fell from heaven. A vast African kingdom inspired by northern and middle belt Nigeria. Mud houses. Red earth roads. Baobab trees. Villagers wearing Hausa robes, Yoruba agbadas, and Igbo wrappers. Drums silent from famine. For 3 years, no rain had fallen. Goats collapsed beside dry wells. Women walked miles carrying empty clay pots on their heads. Farmers stared hopelessly at dead cassava fields and cracked yam barns. The people whispered in fear, because their king had abandoned the God of Israel. King Ahab ruled from a palace decorated with foreign idols and golden carvings. Beside him stood Queen Jezebel, dressed like a powerful African queen with heavy coral beads and dark royal fabrics. She had brought false prophets into the land, hundreds of them, men dressed in red ritual garments, carrying charms, animal bones, and carved wooden idols. The people no longer prayed to God, now they bowed before Baal, and the heavens became silent. Dusty village entrance at sunset. Villagers hiding indoors. One evening, a lonely figure walked into the kingdom. A tall prophet wearing rough animal skin clothing, leather sandals, and a wooden staff. It was Elijah, the man the king blamed for the drought. Children whispered his name in fear. Old women stared through cracked windows. Elijah has returned. The prophet walked boldly into the palace courtyard. Royal guards reached for their spears. King Ahab stood angrily from his throne. You troublemaker of Israel. The king shouted, but Elijah's eyes never moved. I am not the troublemaker, he replied calmly. You abandoned the Lord. Silence filled the palace. Then Elijah spoke loudly so everyone could hear. Gather all Israel. Bring the prophets of Baal. Tomorrow. We settle this. A massive hilltop inspired by Jos Plateau and Nigerian savanna landscapes. Thousands gathered in colorful African attire. The next morning, the entire nation climbed the mountain. Drummers beat slowly. Warriors stood with spears. Women shaded themselves beneath woven baskets. Children sat on rocks watching nervously. At the center stood 2 altars, one for Baal, one for the living God. 450 prophets of Baal danced confidently around their altar. They wore red robes covered in cowries and feathers. Elijah stood alone beside broken stones, one man against hundreds. Then Elijah stepped forward and addressed the crowd. How long will you stand between 2 opinions? If God is Lord, follow him. But if Baal is God, follow him. The people said nothing. Fear controlled them. Then Elijah announced the challenge. No man will light the fire. The God who answers by fire. He is the true God. The crowd gasped. Morning turned to afternoon. The prophets of Baal began their rituals. African drums thundered across the mountain. They danced wildly around the altar. They shouted, O Baal, answer us. Nothing happened. Smoke never appeared. The sky remained empty. Hours passed. The heat became unbearable. Still nothing. The prophets screamed louder. Some cut themselves with knives as blood stained the dusty ground. Women covered their faces in horror. Children cried, but Baal remained silent. Then Elijah began to mock them. Shout louder. Maybe your God is sleeping. The crowd laughed nervously. The prophets became desperate. They danced harder, collapsed harder, prayed harder, but no fire came. Evening approached, and the mountain became silent. Golden sunset across the mountain. Then Elijah slowly walked forward. The entire nation watched. He gathered 12 stones from the ground, each stone representing the tribes of Israel. Like an African elder rebuilding forgotten tradition, Elijah carefully restored the broken altar of God. Then he placed wood upon it, then the sacrifice. But Elijah did something shocking. Bring water. The people stared in confusion. Water was precious during drought, yet servants poured large clay pots over the altar. Once, twice, 3 times. Water soaked everything. Even the trench around the altar overflowed. Now it was impossible for human fire to burn. The people whispered nervously, what is he doing? Elijah lifted his face toward heaven, and for the first time that day, the mountain became completely silent. No drums, no dancing, no shouting, only the wind. Dark clouds forming. Heavy cinematic tension. Elijah prayed once, not screaming, not dancing, not begging, just one prayer. Lord God of Abraham, let these people know you are God. Suddenly, the heavens exploded. Fire crashed from the sky. A blinding pillar of heavenly fire slammed onto the altar like thunder. WHOMMMM, the sacrifice vanished instantly, the wood disappeared, the stones cracked, even the water evaporated in seconds, the mountain shook violently, women screamed, warriors fell to their knees, children covered their eyes, the fire consumed everything. The crowd trembled in terror, then thousands of voices cried together, "The Lord is God! The Lord is God!" People fell face down on the ground across the mountain. The nation finally believed again. After the fire, Elijah climbed higher up the mountain. Dark clouds gathered above the land for the first time in years. The prophet knelt and prayed again. Far away, a small cloud appeared, tiny at first, like a man's hand, but it grew rapidly. Wind roared across the hills, palm trees bent violently, thunder exploded across the sky, then finally, rain, heavy African rain poured across the dry land. Villagers danced in joy, children ran barefoot through muddy roads laughing, farmers lifted their hands to heaven, women cried tears of relief. The drought was over, God had answered. Many trusted idols, many trusted power, many trusted false voices, but one prayer from a faithful man changed an entire nation, because when God answers, nobody can deny his power. And today, people still ask the same question: who do you trust when life becomes impossible? The crowd on that mountain saw fire fall from heaven, but the greatest miracle was that hearts turned back to God. Do you trust his power?